And welcome back, juniors. We're going to go through the ACT reading passage number 2. Materials you're going to need is the 2018-2019 ACT practice test, and turn to pages 34 and 35. If you have not yet, make sure to read the passage and attempt the questions before watching the video. I recommend to set a timer between 9 minutes and 10 minutes to get used to the pace of this section of the test. In the video, we will briefly go over the passage, and in this one, there's actually 2 separate documents, and we'll go through the questions and identify the type of question and correct response. So first off, looking at the source information, this one's a little different than the first passage. This one, we actually have 2 separate documents. Both of them are going to be about apples, and both of them are going to be on similar topics. However, the second passage will diverge a bit from the first passage after the first paragraph. So some of the key details and information from the passage that I pulled out from there, and I'm going to go through A first, and then when we get down to letter D, we'll talk about passage B. From passage A, some of the key details that you should recognize in there before attempting the questions is that it's going to follow the story of a guy named Nikolai Vavilov. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. And he is in the Tian Shan Mountains in between Kazakhstan and China. And what they're talking about in the passage is his research into apples and how in this kind of special area of the world, there is a diverse amount of apples. And then Vavilov basically develops a theory that the apples that he sees there are ancestors of the modern apple. And through history, there's been a debate about where exactly the apple came from. And going back to the individual, Vavilov, he was imprisoned by Stalin back in the 1940s and died then too. And we only now know about his theory since the fall of the Soviet Union not too long ago. And once scientists have looked at his theory, they now think that Vavilov, his early prediction from 1929, is now believed to be right. Then moving on to passage B, it starts off with the same topic there. They talk about the importance of Vavilov and talks a little bit about his apple research. However, in the second paragraph, it starts to diverge a little bit, and it starts to talk about knowing where our food comes from is of paramount importance. And it mentions things about like protecting our food supply from plagues, crop disease, catastrophic weather, and political upheavals, and that Vavilov himself was motivated by famines, which are times of starvation. And it ends with talking about the amount of apple varieties that had been identified in North America, over 16,000. However, it has a little bit of an ominous tone saying that now most of those varieties are lost. So moving on to the questions. Question 11. The author's use of the words and phrases thickets, stretching in every direction, and extensive forests in lines 6 through 7 in passage A most nearly serves to emphasize which of the following points. And a right answer to this one is D. The magnitude of wild apples in Kazakhstan is stunning. This is a craft and structure type question. And you could go back to 6 and 7, and it's recommended to put that into context to help you find the right answer. Okay, number 12. The author of passage A most likely states that the wild apples growing in the Tian Shan looked like apples found at the local grocery store to support the point that, in 12, our correct answer is G. In the Tian Shan, Vavilov had likely found the wild ancestors of the domesticated apple. And this is our first integration of knowledge and ideas type question. So basically, you're just kind of identifying what the passage is talking about and linking it to that information. Number 13, passage A makes which of the following claims about the plant species that are found in Kazakhstan? The correct answer for this one is D, and this one is a key ideas and details type question. So D is, aside from apples, at least 157 plant species found in Kazakhstan are either direct precursors or close wild relatives of domesticated crops. Number 14, now we move on to questions about passage B. Passage B most strongly suggests that Valvov was motivated to become an agricultural scientist primarily because he, and the answer to this one is J, hope to help feed others. And that kind of goes back to when they're talking about famine. And you do need to understand what that word famine is to understand this question. So it'd be a little difficult if you didn't have that vocabulary knowledge. And a famine is just a time of mass starvation in a geographical region. And this question was another key ideas and details type question. All right, number 15. The author of passage B uses the phrase whittled away, line 80, to refer to the way that the apple varieties have been. And again, you could go, if you're taking this test, go back to line 80 and kind of read in and around it to try to put that into context. And this is coming from our last paragraph here, which went back to talk about the incredible amount of variety of apples, over 16,000 apple varieties, but now there are very few left. And that's what whittle means. It has decreased over time. So for a correct answer for 15, you'd have A, gradually lost from nursery catalogs, farmers markets, and the American table. And this type of question is a craft and structure type question. Okay, number 16, as it is used in lines 82 to 83, the phrase named and nurtured most nearly means, in 16 is G, identified and cultivated. And this is another craft and structure type question. So it would help, again, to go back and put that into context, read through lines 82 and 83, and probably just go right from 81 to 84. And that would help you, identify the correct answer there. All right, number 17, in passage B, it can most recently be inferred, and inferred means educated, like an educated guess, from the third paragraph, lines 74 to 79, that, quote, centers of crop diversity become crucially important when, and your correct answer is B, problems with a cultivated crop required experts to research a new variety of crop. And this type of question is a key ideas and details. And you're inferring there, so you're kind of taking an educated guess, because in those lines right there, they're talking about, issues of political upheavals, catastrophic weather, and being able to feed the rest of the people. And so when you find that right answer, problems with a cultivated crop requires experts to research a new variety of crop, that kind of goes back to his main point of like understanding where your food comes from and why you need to have as much knowledge about it as possible in case problems arise in the environment or in society. Number 18, which of the following statements best describes the difference in the tone of the two passages? So now we have to compare both passage A and passage B. And this is where you kind of need to take the passages as a whole. And when we do that, we come to the conclusion that H is the correct answer. Passage A is celebratory. It's talking about this life of Nikolai Valvov and how he tragically died in the 1940s. But later on, his discoveries were proved to be correct. And passage B is more cautionary, talking about how we need to know like where our food comes from and how it's produced, and in case we have some sort of environmental or social or political collapse, that we need to go back and use techniques to keep our food source, productive. And this type of question is an integration of knowledge and ideas. Number 19, compared to the author of passage A, the author of passage B provides more information about the. So again, this is where it comes in importance that you need to kind of understand the overall main points and ideas of both passages. And if you do, you come to the conclusion that A is correct. A reduction in the number of apple varieties in North America over the past 4 centuries. And making sure you're understanding what the question is asking you too. So for like this one, specifically, what information does B give you that is not in A? And A does not talk about apple varieties at all. This one is another integration of knowledge and ideas type question. And our final one, 20, passage A quotes Valveloff as saying, "I could see with my own eyes that I had stumbled upon the center of origin for the apple," lines 11 through 20. In passage B, this quote is directly, and we're looking for H here, paraphrased by, that's a tough name, Zalova. And this one is another integration of knowledge and ideas style question. Okay, well, we've gone through a couple of passages. We've talked about the different types of questions and how to tackle these passages. I hope this has helped you out, and I hope you're ready to succeed on this portion of the test.